Game of Thrones is back, baby. Episode 1 of House of the Dragon has dropped, and it feels so good to have good A Song of Ice and Fire content yet again, and I am here to cover it. If you can't tell, backdrop's a little bit different. I am now officially moved into college, so I can't just be a slacker doing online coursework, but that won't stop me from covering the successor to my favorite show of all time, despite the horrendous ending. And for that reason, like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos, and let's get on with it. Kicking off with the meeting at Harrenhal, where our boy Jaehaerys, who was pretty much a peacetime king and really brought the realm together, ends up sowing seeds of division as he selects his heir of Viserys. Viserys looks kind of frumpy, but it's okay because I like him way more in the show. In the singular episode, Paddy Constantine, however you say it, killed it. He endeared me way more to the character than I ever cared about him in the books. But he did snub Rhaenys, the queen who never was. I really like the decision to have Rhaenyra narrate this, and then the line at the end about Targaryens being the only things that can take down the Targaryen dynasty. Very, very important, especially to the show and the total political spectrum. Overall, banging opening scene, but what was not banging was no new Game of Thrones intro. That is such an iconic intro. I did enjoy the remix of the opening theme. We only got like a golden Targaryen symbol. I know you probably won't one-up the original, but you can at least try to create something new and unique to the show. I was really looking forward to a new main theme, but then we got a little info blurb about, hey guys, remember Daenerys? Yeah, Daenerys, the main character of Game of Thrones. Yeah, please watch this show. This centers around people like Daenerys. And they even highlighted at the end, they're like, 117 years in the past, Daenerys. Just so you know, this is related to Game of Thrones, the most popular show of all time. When Syrax and Rhaenyra first popped on the screen, it looked great all the way through until like a 2-second sequence when they were landing, where it looked kind of shit. But overall, I was really impressed with the CGI, except for that one instance where they were landing and it was like, ugh, really bad. But that moves us on to a scene where Rhaenyra goes and visits her mother, and they talk about the duty of women in the Targaryen line to provide heirs. But you can already see in Rhaenyra's face that she kind of wants something more. She talks about she'd rather be on the battlefield, and you can already see her trying to buck the trends of women within this society. But then we get our first small council meeting. We'll be getting a lot of these, as Corlys Velaryon, who is also another family from the Valyrian Freehold, the big land with dragons that the Targaryens came from, and he's pretty much dropping future plot points. He drops about 3 different future plot points that will come into play, showing that the story has more than just the Targaryens to center around. Yes, that's the main conflict, and these other plot points kind of revolve around the 2 differing parties that will emerge. But overall, there are other factors that don't have blonde hair within this story. And then you can see the subtle conflicts within the council between Velaryon and Hightower. I really like the actor they chose for Otto. I feel like he comes out very Tywin-esque in his portrayal, and Viserys the king just wants everybody to get along. You can already see the main theme with him is that he's cracking under the stress of the throne over and over again as the throne cuts him, we later see. And he's just like, come on, guys, stop making my job so goddamn hard. Next is probably one of my favorite scenes of the episode, as Rhaenyra goes to the throne room. I like how they're making the Kingsguard very much closer to the Targaryens. In the main series, the Kingsguard, like, they did play a part, but they were not very close to the Baratheons or the Lannisters. That one guy, I don't know his name, but he seems like he's boys with Rhaenyra. But then what the real scene is her and Daemon talking in Valyrian, and they have a very familial relationship. It's not total enemies to start off with, and I really like the dynamic they have, and he gives her the gift of Valyrian steel, so then they both have a part of their homeland. I like, as I said with the mother scene, to where they are showing that they are a family, and this conflict that is to come will break them apart, and it actually hurts them, and they don't just hate each other from the beginning. These scenes are what really made Game of Thrones specials. These one-on-one interactions, think back to Littlefinger and Varys in this very same throne room. This is what makes Game of Thrones Game of Thrones. Not the huge action sequences that come of these stuff, but these personality and motive building character moments between 2 people in a room talking. We then see Viserys with his ass in the air as he gets a wound inspected on his back. This is some not so subtle symbolism that the throne is bearing down on him. The pressures of the most powerful seat in the realm, the most dangerous, as he later says, are taking its toll. I just want to reiterate, This guy is so good at his acting. There's even better scenes later on, but I am so endeared to this character already, and I feel so bad for his wife, Emma. He is also showing that gray to where he's really pushing for a son, and his wife's like, you know what? This is my last kid. I know that the risks of birth are very high at this time. And he's like, yeah, it'll be a boy. Well, it was a boy, but then there was a whole lot of other conflict that you had to go through to get that boy. In the notes for the next scene, I have something that says gold cloaks are actually respectable, as I saw Daemon hyping them up and then them in their clean armor, because I was thinking back to how they were on King's Landing with Janos Slint, and they were all so corrupted. And then they proceed to pretty much beat the shit out of people, climaxing in a gelding where a guy farts, the loss of 2 or 3 hands, and then a beheading with Dark Sister. Dark Sister is the blade of Visenya, the sister of Aegon the Conqueror. I always love seeing these little pieces pop up in stories, but something that was the best part of the scene was Daemon's performance. Matt Smith, he sounds slightly unhinged when he's hyping up his gold clothes, and I really like that portrayal. Daemon in the books came off much more stoic in my mind, but here I think it suits him to be more like his ancestor in the future. Ancestors in the past. His future sister, Viserys. Remember when he's getting the pot of gold poured on him, or when he's talking to Khal Drogo? He kind of has the same manic energy, except with the blood of the dragon actually roaring in his veins, instead of being diluted as Viserys was. But then we jump to another small council meeting, where Otto is like, yeah, they were criminals, but then I don't like Daemon, and it was very, very violent. It's also another 2 sides of the coin. Like, he did kill a bunch of thieves and rapers and murderers, but at the same time, the way you go about it does bring terror to the city. And you see Viserys take his brother's side, but at the same time admonishing him. I like the way this character is played yet again over and over again. He feels so stressed, and when the snapping point comes, it's going to be totally earned. I can already tell just from the first episode. And as Otto and Daemon get into it, Otto's like, go fuck your wife, Daemon. And then Daemon's like, go fuck your wife or my wife. Oh wait, your wife's dead and my wife's a bitch. Fuck you guys. Which leads us to a scene of Daemon having performance issues in the bedroom as he stresses over his position and the way his brother perceives him, which I kind of don't get, because it seems like Viserys backed him up. He didn't really scold him that much, so I don't know why he was stressing so hard over that, because he does seem pretty secure. I guess he's stressing over maybe it is an actual boy and he won't get to be king. But overall, I thought the Viserys seemed pretty staunchly in his favor, giving him nothing to worry about. But then we get to the tourney to prematurely celebrate a birth that doesn't happen. So back in the time, after the episode, they talk about births being 50-50. And then it's a 50-50 if it's a boy. So we have a 25% chance that this turns out well. Viserys, like, I know you're a hope for the best type of guy, but maybe delay it just slightly so you're not celebrating the death of your wife and then a couple hours later your son too. Maybe just like, okay, we'll hold off a week. I think everybody can go have fun in the brothels for a week. But anyways, the jousting tournament had a lot of fun events to kick it off with. The little hints towards alliances when the Baratheons give Rhaenys their favor, showing that the queen who never was still has supporters that back her up. And then the POV jousting shot was only there for like 2 seconds, but that was a really cool piece of cinematography I liked a lot. And let me get some water because Twitter is going to be thirsting over Kristen Cole, and that boy was cooking. He beats Daemon later on in the episode, but before we get to that, we got to talk about Daemon's armor, drippy as fuck. His horse armor, drippy as fuck. And then he chooses to fight Otto Hightower's eldest boy, and he almost loses the first bout, but then comes around and kicks his ass. Which leads us to, how the fuck did that horse not break its neck? Like, no way that horse just got up and was fine, let alone the guy face planting into the ground. I was like, somebody should definitely be dead here. Speaking of death, I love how casual Rhaenys and Corlys were talking about, like they were old veterans, as people just murder each other over just like a little spout of jousting, which doesn't super make sense. This is not an official melee like in Dunk and Egg stories where everything is set up and it's like 7v7 and then you try to kill each other and you can yield and all that stuff. So I don't know why nobles would just be slaughtering each other with no repercussions. didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I did like the contrast between them just sitting there all calm about it, and then their kids being like, oh, what the fuck? And that one squire just being like, overall, I thought that scene was good, except for all the nobles murdering each other and people just being super casual about it. I guess that's just something to hook viewers in. And they're like, don't think about it too much. These are like important people that are killing each other. But from a weirdly lighthearted murder scene, we go to Viserys, and I feel so bad for my boy having to make this decision. And his wife's screams were way more horrific, and the knife going into her belly, than any of the deaths out on the tourney field. Just that blade cutting into her stomach, so vulnerable. Like, oh, I was feeling so much like emotion in that moment versus just like a bunch of people dying on the field, which I don't really care about. Like, I don't really know this woman at all in the story. I don't have investment, but they did a very good job of making me feel both Viserys's pain and then also hers as she panics as she's getting held down and cut open. Now, this may just be some like book conspiracy, but there's something called the Maester's conspiracy where they kind of killed the dragons off slowly. And I think that they may have kind of done that by killing slowly the wife and then also his son to curate the bloodline. But that's also probably just over theorizing because Game of Thrones didn't do much of that stuff anyways. Like Sam, for all people, was making groundbreaking discoveries at the Maester's facility. If this was true, then he wouldn't have been able to make those back in the original show. But it is something cool to keep in mind to think maybe the Maesters did kill that son because he like hiccuped slash coughed, but then later they said he survived for multiple hours. So it is something to keep in the back of your mind that maybe they're killing off certain Targaryens and dragons on purpose. Just something that George definitely has in the books, but may not make an appearance in the show. Or maybe it will. But back to Daemon and, as I said, Thirst Trap Mr. Cole. They joust and Daemon hits some Tony Hawk ass shit before losing, but then pulls out his sword. And I really like Christian Cole using a flail. That is such a nice, cool detail that will vary up the fights versus everything having to be a sword fight. Like, I really want a Robert's Rebellion show where he's just swinging with this massive warhammer. I don't know why. It's just the nerd in me that's like variety of weapons past just a sword makes it so much more fun in a fight. But then Daemon like tries to fake his win. Like he like pushes him over and then like stands up. And then Christian Cole's like, you didn't fucking beat me. I was like not in a yield position and then gets Daemon to yield. Daemon's just not having a great day. And then he finds out about the boy and has a worse day. But then the boy ends up dying. And that is the later scene where he's in the brothel, kind of being a little bit of a dickhead with a celebration about the death of his nephew. But at the funeral, Rhaenyra has some cold ass words for her dad. And Daemon still shows he loves his family, that this conflict is not something he wants, but he does have his pride in his rights of what he believes he is owed. When we see in that small council scene, he's just like hiding behind the wall. And he's like, yeah, stand up for me, Viserys. Stand up for me. Now, I'm not sure which one was the best Paddy Constantine Viserys scene, but this outburst he had where it's like, you are feeding on the bodies of my son and wife like crows. And he just storms out. It's like, damn, I feel for this man, even though I just met him this episode. I have a feeling that this guy's gonna win Oscars or Grammys. What do they give TV shows? Do they give them Oscars? But anyways, his performance so far, I feel like is gonna be great all the way through. I am really excited to see where this leads. But then we jump to Otto Hightower in his room, sending letters and sending his daughter to the king. My boy is like the new Tywin Littlefinger Olenna. I describe their dynamic kind of like the Tyrells, where she's Marjorie and he's Olenna. But if Olenna was Littlefinger, and in this case, Littlefinger is now Otto Hightower, he is there for the kill, for the power. This man is addicted to being in control. Now, I can't remember what the mysterious letter is about, but it is being sent to Old Town. Old Town is where the Maesters are, and I can't remember exactly how that relates. But the creepy thing is him sending his daughter to go comfort the king. And I feel so bad for Alicent. She is not used to the Game of Thrones yet, and you can tell how nervous and like uncomfortable she is with her book. But she did actually give Viserys the most heartfelt acknowledgement of his wife and son's deaths, being like, damn, shit sucks. I know how you feel. I'm sorry. And that's pretty much the best thing she could have said. Now, as I was talking about in the brothel where Daemon is kind of down and moping, one of his friends like, our prince is going to give a speech. And I found it so fucking funny. I was giggling out loud. The dude balls deep in a chick in the middle of the shot, just looking back at Daemon like, can I finish? This is awkward. And as Otto Hightower reports to the council, he calls the son the heir for the day, and Viserys is not happy with this. Another probably one of my favorite best scenes in the episode, back in the throne room, the two of them, and Viserys is just tearing into him, and Daemon's giving it right back. Everything they say is kind of truthful. Daemon calls him weak. You can see Viserys is always trying to compromise, and the council is taking advantage of him. They don't really respect him that much, and he calls Daemon a loose cannon, that he's not suited for the throne, and then he finally says, you are not my heir. I've chosen a new heir, and ends up cutting himself on the throne. Yet again, the metaphor with the pressures of his position. And goddamn, if this is what we get every episode, these performances, it will actually make those action scenes mean something, unlike a certain season 7 and 8 where it was all action and no actual character interaction. I can't wait to see how this turns out, but my positive feelings just keep on going up and up. Now we get to the biggest trouble instigating moment in the episode so far. Rhaenyra being named queen by her papa. The talk they have about what do dragons mean, and Viserys talking about how they aren't supposed to have this power. This was never meant for men to have, and they are just normal people, but with the dragons, they are elevated beyond it. And Rhaenyra recognizes that, where Daemon thinks he is above people. In the fight with Kristen Cole, like he was in such disbelief that he could lose. He's the blood of the dragon. Nothing can defeat him. He is chosen special. He's part gods, as Rhaenyra mentioned in her little dialogue to her father. But she realizes, no, we're just people, and we have nuclear weapons. And that's a very dangerous combination. And the person on the throne has to recognize that. And you can see the relief of Viserys being like, holy shit, somebody that gets it. And throughout the scene, we get cut-ins to Daemon and his dragon Caraxes. I love the way the long boy looks. The red, the wings on the back feet. He feels like Daemon, slightly unhinged, a little malformed. He is the dragon embodiment of a wrong side of the coin Targaryen, and I love the way he slithered into the sky. And also for you non-book readers, keep an eye out on his woman that he took up there. She's more than just his brothel friend. Something I don't really know how to feel about is them setting up Aegon having the big secret about the long night. He didn't look into Westeros and see a bountiful land. He saw doom coming, and like Westeros needing to be united. Yeah. But it never ended up united, and a Targaryen wasn't on the throne when the long night happened. So I guess you're just trying to act like season 8 didn't happen the way it did, but I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this moment because I like what they said, but at the same time, my feelings are tainted by what they showed back in 2018. Damn, was that 2018 or 2019? Anyways, that was a long while ago. I thought it was kind of cool to see Arya's dagger, but I didn't feel like it added much. But yet again, this little plot point about having this stress about the White Walkers and the threat in the north adds to the theme of Viserys just crumbling under the pressure of the Iron Throne and being the Targaryen king. So I'm fine with it in that type of story context, but not totally sure how I feel about it in the overall, hey, let's try to make up for the end of Game of Thrones context. In relation to this, there's the season preview to where I was showing bits and pieces from the continuing season, and they talked about the Azor Ahai prophecy, which they never did in the regular show. Like they kind of hinted at it, but then never really followed through because Arya ended up being the one that killed the Night King. So it's like, why are you mentioning this now when you didn't do it? I really liked the rest of the preview, and they showed some awesome battles. We got to see some other dragons, and I'm really hoping that these individual character moments stay throughout, so those battles feel like rewards instead of just being like, okay, we don't know how to write a good story. Here's some cool CGI because we can throw money at it. But overall, I am so happy with the way that the first episode of House of the Dragon turned out, and I'm super excited for the rest of the season. This got me interested again. I was a little skeptical coming in. I'm like, okay, I did my research. I think this is going to be good. Watch my other video preview on House of the Dragon. But I was still nervous because the way it ended off in Game of Thrones, you can't help but be a little skeptical, and they are earning me back bit by bit here. This was a huge leap, and I think I'd give this on a Game of Thrones scale of episodes. So let's say I'm rating as compared to like seasons 1 through 6. I give this probably a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. It was a very solid episode, but keep in mind those last 2 points for 9 and 10 take a huge amount to earn. It was moreover that it didn't have a lot of mistakes made, just like a little funky CGI and then kind of nonsensical fighting at the arena. But overall, they didn't do that stuff to super excel it to the top, but they also didn't have anything bad that I saw. I am super excited for next week's, as I've said. Like and subscribe if you enjoy and you want to see these reviews, and I'm out. Peace.